First, I have one of my co-founders, Don Miller. What's up, Don Miller? Hey, young little huh? I didn't know you were here, man. Jay Whitlow is on his way. He's my CTO co-founder. He is not here yet, but he is coming. Matt Molnar, where are you, Matt? Matt Molnar is right there. He's one of my partners. Who else we got? Emily. Emily. She's yes, yes. Um, who else we got? Cameron. There you are. Cameron, you guys give these guys a hand, man. They believe in the vision. So before I really get started, I kind of want to share a little bit about Classana and what we're trying to do. This sounds distorted to me up here, but if it sounds fine to you guys, just okay, perfect. So Classana started. Does anybody know have any idea what Classana is first so far? Okay, who doesn't know at all? Oh, perfect. You know it, Gene. Come on. Gene did this logo by the yes. So I'm gonna, give Gene kudos in a second. But Classana is, think of it as Pinterest for education. So based on your particular interests, we want to show you the books you should read, the classes you should take, the organizations you should join, the events you should attend, all to help you get to your career goal. So if you think about it, college significantly underperforms its addressable market. And thankfully, I have the honor and privilege as of about 3 weeks ago to be named to the University of Toledo Board of Trustees. So thankfully, I get a chance to be impactful, hopefully, in making making the future of education more accessible to more people, hopefully. I'm going to do my best. But there are more American adults without a college degree than there are with a college degree, about 60%. So if we think about that historically, if you didn't have a college degree, you were stuck at working at McDonald's or you were a gas station attendant and, society really didn't know what to do with you. The college degree was your gateway to getting the American dream, the proverbial American dream. But in the last 15, maybe 20 years or so, that has significantly not been the case, as is the best way I can say it. So what do we do with those students? What do we do with the kid who's under 10% a chance of, if I was born in a low-income family in the middle of the city, less than 10% of those students have a college degree by the time they're 25. Less than 10%. So that's 90% of, low-income, middle of the city kids who don't have a shot historically. And traditional students actually don't fare much better. And some of you guys have college degrees, and I wish the best for our students, who are going through school now. But I mean, the numbers are what they are. 70% of college students change their major several times before they graduate, many 3 times or more. And we know what that does to, by the time you get to graduate, you've extended your graduation by years or so, and you gain more debt in getting through school. 60% of college kids don't actually work in the field that they studied. So, you spend all this money pursuing a particular degree path and you don't even work in that field. 44%, according to USA Today, of college-educated American adults are unemployed or underemployed. So that means something to me. And if you think about my path, is how I came to the idea for Classana, is I believe the future of education is an entrepreneurial endeavor. And what I mean by that is students are going to have to take a more proactive approach to getting the skills and expertise they need to get to where they want to go. And how we do that is, it shouldn't just be the luck of the draw. And I'm going to talk to my guest tonight a little bit about this, but it shouldn't just be the luck of the draw in getting to your career goal. It shouldn't just be that. Any successful person I know, and I can't wait to, ask Sam about this, every successful person I know, there was somebody along the line that said, you know what, let me show you something. I see something in you. Let me show you a different world. Every single one, and this has never failed me. Every single one, there was a teacher, a mentor, an uncle, a parent even, who said, you know what, there's something about you. Let me show you a different world. And it shouldn't just be the luck of the draw. So what do we do for the kids at Jones Middle School who don't have that person? What do we do for the kids at Gunkel who don't have that? What do we do for the kids in sub-Saharan Africa who will never see a successful person? So our job, and what I've taken as my personal mission, is to redistribute education. So how do we get you to the things that you need to get to your career goal? So if you think about that kid in sub-Saharan Africa, let me actually go back a little bit even further. So historically, education was disseminated, just word of mouth. This is, there was a guru in the next village who knew how to do X, Y, or Z. And so if you think about it, you think about the Airbnbs of the world, who isn't a new concept, or Uber of the world. These aren't new concepts, but they're what we did before we had cars ourselves. If I was, a traveling warrior, there was a family who took me in for the night. Think about Airbnb. If I didn't have a car, there was a neighbor who would, take me to where I wanted to go, or a friend who would come pick me up. And these technologies enabled that and empowered them to, work at scale. So if we think about education before Henry Ford, this is how education worked. There was somebody who showed me the way. And so this is not a new concept, but we're enabling and empowering it by technology. If I want to be, a computer programmer, and I go to my college advisor today, he's going to show me 3 or 4 or however many programs, in number of programs my particular institution has on, computer programming. But he can't show me, a book on Amazon I can buy to show me how to write in Python. He can't necessarily tell me about the guys who work down at Seed Co-working, computer engineers who are hanging out there all day long. They can't tell me about a class on Khan Academy that I can take and learn computer programming for free. Number one, because they're paid to put me in these classes. Number two, they may not even know these other resources even exist. It's not their domain. So what we want to do is show people the best resources to get them to the next step in their career. So the books you should read, the classes you should take, the organizations you should join, the events you should attend, and more. So that's what Classana is. And Sam reminded me to tell you a little bit about Method. So Method is, if you go to classanamethod.com, this is where we write notes, and Cameron's been writing some really fantastic things, and I've been writing some things. It's a blog, essentially, to where we get to talk about what our vision is for the future of education. So when we think about that, Method is the way the education system we believe will work. So if I can say, and most of you guys know me, I say this humbly, I believe we are going to be the next Henry Fords of the world to education. So not just me, but I'm talking about Matt, I'm talking about Cameron, I'm talking about Emily, I'm talking about Jay, who's not here, I'm talking about Don. Collectively, we will build the future of education, and I believe that. So this is what we're doing tonight. So Classana Method, the Fireside Chat, is an initiative. This is our first event, and thank you, Sam, for being our guinea pig. This is our initiative to find people who our target demographic, our audience, people who are lifelong learners, people who want to continue doing what it is that they do, would find interesting. Find people, who are alternative learners themselves, or who are just interesting to our community, and talk to them about what their ideas are on the future of education. And to that end, there's a couple of housekeeping things I got to do before I bring up my guests. And this is our first time doing this, so I just have ideas in what I want to do tonight. So if it's a little wonky, forgive me. But for everybody who gave, I really appreciate it. We just, this was pay what you want. You could pay nothing, or you could pay $1 million. And, I'm waiting for Gary to write the check for $1 million here. But, right. But first, for everybody who gave, thank you, because it does two things when you give. And initially, when I said, for those of you who got this via Eventbrite or Facebook, that we were going to provide a scholarship to a kid to learn computer programming on Treehouse. But my friend Molly emailed me today and said, hey, Coder Dojo is in Toledo. And so Molly is one of the program administrators for Coder Dojo, where they teach kids how to computer program. And so it's a global network of free computer programming clubs for young people. It's free, number one, but that means she's volunteering her time to do this. So based on your gracious donations, a part of these funds for this evening will go to supporting them. Maybe they can do a pizza party, or maybe just because she's doing fantastic work, she can take her husband to dinner. So thank you. Because she's doing good work, and they deserve it. So give her a hand for believing in our students. Secondarily, there's a couple people. I'm going to thank my co-founders again, and I'm going to thank my partners, Emily Little, who's fantastic. She's an intern. She started with us maybe about a month ago. And she's been awesome. She helped me put this together tonight. Cameron King, who's been writing some fantastic stuff. And if you could, when you get a chance, you don't have to do it now, but just take a note to go to classanamethod.com, and you'll see some of his work there. Don Miller, again, Jay Willow, who's on his way, Matt Molnar, Andrew Weber, who's not here yet, but he's going to take some photos tonight. So when he does come and start taking photos, tell him I said thank you publicly. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything before I get into the show. All right, let's do this. So I wrote this little note or essay or whatever you want to call it about Sam. And I'm going to read it to you. And I'm going to read that to you first, and then I'm going to read you the bio he sent me. So this is what I wrote when I, started talking about this particular event. And if you guys want to come in, there are seats here. Feel free. So the note goes, Sam is a good friend of mine, and I've appreciated from near and far his ability to attract people with his enthusiasm for service to others. I call him, to his face and behind his back, the heart of the city. When you know Sam, you know that his personal tuning to service is genuine and thoughtful. He's ambitious, yes, but not in the way of seeking fortune or glitz. It's the ambition of one knowing there's a place to be and at a specific time. It's the zeal of unabashed rejection for cant, mixed with old wisdom learnt from great minds and community stewards who long carried the baton. It's the enthusiasm of knowing you want to go, and it burns like fire, tapered by great counsel. It's why not. Like myself, Sam built his education out in the world. He's executive director at the Center for Servant Leadership, where he leads strategy, fundraising, and outreach initiatives. He's an alternative learner, curating his own educational path and challenging prerequisites. So that's what I wrote. Now his more formal bio reads, Sam and his wife, Lindsay, live in West Toledo with their 3 brilliant and brave daughters. Together, they are actively involved at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church with a tight group of beloved friends. In addition to being executive director of the Center for Servant Leadership, merging with the Leadership Toledo this July, breaking news, Sam is member of the Central Committee of the Lucas County Democratic Party, a Tigers fan, and a novice marathoner. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Melden. Careful. Thank you. So when I thought about doing this event, I thought about somebody who I've had great respect for, and obviously you're one of those people. We've known each other for about 5 years. I think we met around the first TEDx, right? Yeah. And, oh my God. So I thought about who is the audience that we're trying to speak to, and it's you guys. And I thought, who would this audience really want to hear, number one, and who has, on top of that, great ideas and is thoughtful, responsible in their thoughtfulness regarding where they see themselves going and the ideas that they behold. And I thought about you. So with that, I have some prepared questions, but I'm sure we'll get into some things just because of the nature of how we do. And I'm going to throw some curveballs. I want to talk about politics too, which is sticky. It's like some things you just don't talk about publicly. We talk about those things publicly. So other than the traditional response, when people ask you, what do you do, how might you respond?
So good evening, everyone. How you doing? Before I answer this question, I want to tell you something. The notion that a room full of people that I respect and know from various different interactions would want to come and listen to this conversation is insanely honoring. And my hope is that by the end of the thing, we're having an actual conversation and not just listening to a Q&A. So if that blows up Will's thing, it's his first one. That's why I'm the guinea pig. But it's going to be recorded and put online. But the bottom line is we're in a space, in time, in a real moment with real people. And I just want to pause and let you know that means a lot to me. So what do I do? What do I do? You wrote something that was really great. I need a copy of that. Because you were saying things, I'm like, that would be great if I was that person. No, I think what I do, and hopefully we get into this, he talked about politics. I hope that we also get into faith, because faith is something that's intensely kind of at the center of what leads me to pursue the life I'm pursuing. But what I try to do is I try to see the good in people. And that means a lot. But then I try to see what that is. And then I love that there's this huge table, because I've been telling people recently, I feel like whatever it is that I'm doing in the city, I want to bring people to the table, see what they want to put out, what they bring to the table, but I want to be like setting the table a little bit. Like I want to be like kind of connecting people, organizing people around what their deepest, truest, good interest is, what their gift is, what their passion is. But then saying, well, what if you brought that to bear in this context with those people in connection with this group that maybe you didn't necessarily think about making a connection with? And so that's what I want to be doing. And the nice thing about that is I want to be doing that for the rest of my life. And it has like nothing to do with a job title or a specific place or position. But I've been able to do that recently. So that's what I do, I think.
Why didn't you graduate from college?
Because I didn't get enough credits. I think I didn't get past that course, though. No, I didn't graduate college because I started working, honestly. I mean, like, that's not really necessarily true. I started working, and then the value personally to me working full-time was greater than the value of continuing an education, right? I mean, it wasn't because I started working. A lot of people start working while they're in college, and then they finish college, and then they keep working. I didn't necessarily feel like it was valuable to me. I tried a lot of different things. I'll give you my little educational history. I went to community college right out of high school because I wanted to remain like in the area. And then that was extremely boring to me. And then I fell into a group of like a ministry type position, doing like college age people ministry, which is an all consuming thing. I mean, that time of your life is all consuming anyway. So I kind of joke like I went to college like working in ministry for like 4 years. So LeBron leaves Cleveland, right? Remember this? He leaves Cleveland. He comes back to Cleveland. What does he say? He writes this letter and says like I didn't go to college. When I went to Miami, it was kind of like college for me, right? Like it was this experience going away and doing something. I think for me, that's what like the church was, because then I left and I got involved in nonprofit work and a number of different things. But ultimately because it wasn't interesting and captivating and compelling. It was competing with all the other things I was interested in locally in my life. So it was very out of context for me.
And so I think about that, and number one, I believe that college is a worthy investment. I just think the way we do college is going to have to change. And to that regard, do you think it was that college just didn't have what you needed, or was it something about you specifically that you just weren't there for what college offered?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Thankfully, earlier this afternoon, like a couple hours, Will sent me some of the questions, so I was able to think about context of what the evening might be. Although I don't know about the curveballs. And I was thinking about context, right? I was thinking about how important context is, and quite frankly, to me, college never gave me a personal context to apply it to, ever. It was very much a chart of if you complete this course by this date and do that about 100 more times, you'll have something that I promise you is valuable. Only the I was not someone I actually knew or respected. It was a faceless organization called a university with a promise that, quite frankly, I had this gut feeling like I bet I could get it some other way. And so, yeah.
Do you find yourself having to justify why you didn't go?
Yeah, I want to be. I was thinking about this conversation. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I want to say something that I really know to be true. I'm not saying it's the only thing. This is going to feel a bit like a trump card. Can we just all kind of acknowledge the fact that card games are ruined forever? Because now no one's allowed to say Trump anymore. Like, if there's a game with a trump card, that game's over. Which in the Midwest, like euchre, is done. So we're all going to have to move. Pick up bridge, if there's Trump in bridge. This is going to feel like a trump card. I feel like I've had to explain it less because I'm a white, extroverted male. That's like a real thing. I've had to explain it less because I love talking to anyone. You give me an interview, and I've never actually failed an interview. Ever. And I can get interviews because, like, I mean, here's what I've had to explain less. I've had to explain more, like, what? You didn't go to college? Right? And I'm like, but you don't know, you barely know anything about me. Like, it was just a first impression thing. So So I haven't had to explain it too much. I think I've had to explain, like, how did you do this without going to college, or do you want to go back, or why don't you like? I mean, we get into that conversation, but it's not like, so wait, why should you be able to do this? You didn't go to college. I've never really experienced that, and I want to just acknowledge like the real factors that are in the world that I've benefited from to an enormous degree.
Yeah, and this is kind of off track, but you just sparked something because how I got the idea for Classana happened for that specific reason. I just graduated like 6 weeks ago, and I was.
So wait. You graduated 6 weeks ago, and so that's the jump, right? So it's like get your degree, board of trustees. Is that the deal? That's like. Is that the that's the normal route?
Typically how it works.
Because I might want to go back and get my degree. Maybe.
No.
Let me. How many? Okay.
No. So I got that question before I graduated, and so I built all these. I just had a lot of experiences in my life, and which put me in a position to sit at the table with some really interesting people, some prominent people in the community. And I went to speak. I won't say his name, but I went to speak to one very prominent, non-black, guy, very prominent in the community. And he said, you're probably a fine young man, but people will respect you more if you had your degree. And I thought a lot about that because, I was an entrepreneur and, I was running my own business. And so I went back to school based on his, prompting. That summer I was taking 16 credit hours, which is insane in the summertime. And I was sitting with one of my real mentors, and while I was taking these 16 credit hours, tired, running a business, had a new family, and he said, tell me why you're in school. And so I said, well, so-and-so said people will respect me more if I had my college degree. And he said, but you run your own business. I'm like, yeah. And so he said, well, I'm not telling you not to go to school, but since you run your own business, I would recommend that you specifically take classes that help you get better at you running your business and not chase it for a piece of paper. That made even more sense to me. So when I went back to school to register for fall semester, I realized that, college is not set up for you to just pick and choose classes. But to your point of you were a white male, doing a lot of different things.
Still am.
Still a white male, yeah. And doing a lot of different things, and you felt like you may have the experience that you don't have to justify it as much. Do you feel like, it's held you back at all? Or are the things that you want in life still there? You just got to find different ways to get to it.
It did hold me back, I think, more initially than it does now. I mean, so there were several jobs. Like I mentioned this like notion of like I was in the church for a little while, ministry, kind of very much a bubble type career. Okay, not normal life in any way. And when I got out of that, I remember thinking like all these there were different nonprofit jobs that I thought were interesting. And when I looked at what the requirements were, I felt definitely held back by that. But in a city like Toledo over the past 5 years, my personal the reason you asked me to do this and how we've been able to work together and get to know each other, the college thing never applied. There were some jobs that I felt like, yeah, I can't do that. And that was probably like legitimate. I mean, these are companies, I don't know anyone there. But so I just kind of like adjusted, which actually hindsight's 2020. That was not like, well, I guess I'll have to find another way to be qualified enough to get that job someday. It was more like, well, I'll just go this direction.
You could be doing a lot of things. You're talented, skilled, people like you, apparently. Why community service?
Yeah, so I mentioned faith is going to come back into the mix a little bit. My understanding of this notion of ministry. So it's so interesting. You asked a question that I'm going to answer another question that you had on the paper. I think one of the best decisions I ever made was leaving the church, professionally, but personally being more dedicated to what I was selling there than ever. But just like maybe finding new terms for the things that I was talking about. And so I don't think about community service. Like I don't think about it. I don't even think about it in those terms. The reason I'm becoming more and more intrigued and interested in politics is I think that's just a really big shovel to move a lot of dirt for a lot of people. But like, if it was a small nonprofit initially and it morphs into this and into that and into that, and if I was more like willing to risk and do different entrepreneurial things, I could see some like crazy startup where that could help a lot of people. I mean, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing with this. So I don't think about it in terms of community service. You asked why, and I would say, what other option do I have? I feel like there's not an option. It's also why I don't want to move. Like I have no interest in moving from the city. I've been talking to people about like I don't have like the travel itch or like any desire to see any other place. Like I'm like unbelievably a people person. So like I think about the people that I've had coffee with in this room over the past 8 weeks, and it's like a lot of you, and I wish it was more, quite frankly. So yeah.
When you think about, let's talk about politics for a second, and the entrepreneurial approach to education that you've taken, and you and myself, I mean, we didn't think about just curating a path where it just kind of happened naturally. When you think about this path that you've taken and curating your own educational experience, and in the landscape of, the people that you or I or some people in the room may support, how do you look at the lens of where they want to take our country, and how do you vet that against, the experiences you've had?
So I just called politics a big shovel to move the most dirt for the most people. You might have a sense of who I'm supporting. And, so a barrier for me for education was like the cost. I mean, give me a break. Like, so I don't see the value in it, and then it costs that much. Like, that's a bad deal. Like, so I think that's an important conversation to have. But it's interesting. My wife did graduate college, so I married into some debt with that. But relatively, that'll probably be the only debt she ever puts us in ever. If you know my wife, she's like the most modest person in the world. So that was like the only debt she brought. It was amazing to think about these like government loans at that interest rate. And so I think like that's actually not a service to the most people. Like it's actually not that helpful, especially when like I'm in the process of buying this house, and you start to become an adult, and you look at like loans, and you pay down the highest interest first. But then student loans, it's like you get out with $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. That's your highest. What are you gonna do? If you're asking me like, who I support, it's also interesting that I think about politics differently. I think about politics very much here and now. I don't think about politics like the Constitution. I'm into the Constitution, okay? But I also I think context is kind of important. Sorry. Like I think context is kind of important. And I think context is important to every possible conversation. So I'm currently a fan of Bernie Sanders. I will also vote for Hillary. I don't know how deep we're getting into this, but I just went there. So
we can go as deep as you.
Here's why, though.
Go.
I'm a fan of Bernie because I have the sense that if we don't swing for the fences, are we ever gonna hit the fence? Like what if we swing like Babe Ruth didn't like call a single and then hit a home run? Like he called his shot and then he hit a home run. And I feel like why would we want to just like start with incremental gains? It's real, it's true, and Hillary's incredibly qualified. You want to talk about some gender stuff there? That's insane, that dynamic. But I just think that some of the stuff that Sanders is talking about is really important. I'm willing to settle for him moving her to the left a little bit. The general will snap her back to the middle. But I mean, I lost track of the question. There's a lot to be said there. There's a lot to be said there. The shovel to move the most dirt for the most people. So if there's a candidate that does that, I'm probably going to say, in the context, real time, real issues, where are we? I think it's really significant that Hillary's first commercial was, "I want to be your champion. I want to be your champion," and Bernie's only message has been, right, like we. And so I think that matters a lot.
So, and I don't want to get in the weeds on politics, but to talk about politics is the fact that the most, how can I say this gently because I don't want to offend anybody. The fact that some people are leading in this race with this kind of tone that they're leading with, I think it says more about us than it does the candidates. So when you think about that, how do you process that versus what we want for ourselves? Because I think that ties back to education and what we think about how we view the world.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said there. I think one of the things that's interesting is, so Abraham Heschel has a wonderful quote: "Words create worlds." Words create worlds, and when he first shared that, he said, like, Hitler didn't like start what he started by like rolling in with a tank one day. Like, it was like planting these seeds, like planting this hate, these words, just like little bit by bit by bit by bit, and then it turned into something. And so I think words matter a lot. I think intentionality matters a lot with the way that we carry ourselves in the small moments. That has implications for how you carry yourself in the big moment. Certainly, Trump isn't doing anything. He's not doing anything all that creative. He's, quite frankly, I think, monetizing on what was already there in the pendulum culture of, like, we had a black president named Barack Obama.
I'll tell you, the first time I went to D.C. after he was president, and there's museum with, like white guy, and then there's this blip on the radar. Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, Barack Hussein Obama is our first black president, and the country's response to that. No, I mean, he crushed his second term too. I mean, so he won 2 terms, but the country's response to that is potentially, I could not think of a more opposite presence in the world. And so, I think that matters. Relating it to education, I think it's a wonderful question that you're asking, because I think what you're doing and what you're kind of for is the answer to that, in terms of curating based on values, not just based on the end means. Another thought that made me think of, though, is like this notion of working the system. And I think that's just a really important thing to put in this conversation, because I wonder how many times college and education is just simply viewed as the system that you just have to go work, and you put in your time and you pull the lever and you come out with this commodity that you're going to be able to leverage for the rest of your life. I think that's connected somehow.
Yeah. So, and I talked a little bit about this earlier. Switching gears, every single successful person that I know who is successful in however you gauge success had somebody who at some point in their life, probably in their younger years, say, I see something in you. Let me show you something. Who was that person for you, and what did they show you?
How much time do we have? I think, first of all, I want to just say something that it's interesting to me. I feel like I kind of flipped that a little bit with me, my personality. I often found someone that said, I see something in you. I'm going to like follow you around for a while. Which, for the record, go back to this faith notion, right? Like, I think it's very interesting that modern, and I would say like Western Christianity, which I don't know if I've like said that, but that would be the faith that I'm referring to. But modern like Western Christianity talks about like disciple making as this like kind of conversion thing, like get more people to vote this way, instead of like come follow me and like learn what I learn and like walk with me. And so often what I started doing, my junior year of high school, I went back to the church. Our family kind of went through some stuff. We left the church. I come back to the church. I met my youth pastor and said, hey, can we get like pop? I didn't say coffee. I was about to say coffee. But can we go to lunch next week? And we literally went to lunch every 2 weeks for the next 2 years, without fail. We went to Fazoli's over on the east side. I ate more fake bread there than any human being should ever eat. And that taught me what it was like to like meet with someone. Agenda-free, full conversations. Here's what's crazy. Now I'm 32 and I have 3 daughters. He was the father of 3 daughters. My parents split when I was 8, and I got to see this person like work in that. He raised 3 daughters, it was just a really interesting thing. From there's this list of other people. Now I'm in this spot where it's not necessarily one person, but I almost like kind of like build a board, so to speak, that I kind of visit.
How did you pick those people?
Pure self-interest. I mean, hopefully we'll talk about organizing a little bit. I think self-interest is a valuable, very important thing to acknowledge within yourself. And so there's a friend of mine, a good friend of ours, Paula Ross, who I really love her political experience. And so as I found myself, she actually probably sparked this notion that like local politics is probably a good kind of space for me to get into if I really want to like articulate my values in the world. And so I said, well, you're going to have to like teach me about that then. I can't just like go do that. And so we've met several times. Dave Beckwith is a really, really good, close mentor of mine. The thing about Dave is I can talk to him about literally everything, which is great. I think it's very important, and I just mentioned Paula. She's deeply meaningful, but I don't talk to Paula about being a husband or a father. I mean, Paula and I talk about different things, how, she, like, the dynamics of her and John when they were raising their kids, but the dynamics of Dave and Lindsay when they were raising their kids are different. And so I just work through that a little bit differently. Dave Beckwith is great community organizing. I mean, that's what he did his whole life. And now he's like at this kind of like, I think, in the clouds professor level where like no matter what you start talking about, he's going to like connect it to something bigger that I need to learn about. And it's wonderful. And there's several others. The pastor that married my wife and I is still a very, very close friend. And he's one of those like father figure types too. So there's a list of people, but it also doesn't have to be kind of forever. Those people I'm still in conversation with. Sometimes it can be, I think for the next year, we just need to spend some time together and see what happens. And I'll be intentional about that. Sometimes I will seek out someone and say, I would like to have coffee with you once a month for the next 12 months. I'm doing that type of stuff with more regularity because it's not just to say, can I have coffee? And then like, I do it again and again, and they're just going, what's happening here? Like I think it's helpful to set some of those expectations.
When you have those types of mentors, I found, they see things in you that you may not see in yourself, and that's why they invest the time. What do you see for yourself? In general.
Yeah, I go back to what I said I think I do right now. I see that no matter what I'm doing, that's a vulnerable question. Can we just like acknowledge that? I've been toying around with this idea, and I was thinking about like writing something about it, like this notion of running for office, or sharing your story in any way, or starting a company that's deeply personal, or working for a nonprofit because you were once like related to the work, right? So like abuse victims who then go on to, work in these organizations that help abuse victims. Like, I mean, these types of things, sharing your story in any meaningful way is one of the most courageous and vulnerable things anyone can ever do. I just am like more and more mindful of that. So when you say, what do I see for myself? I just want to acknowledge how intense of a question that is. And then I would say that I would go back to what I said at the beginning. I think that I can see the good in people and connect them. And I think that my goal in my life in this city is to look back 30 or 40 years from now and see the city in a completely different condition than what it is now. And whether that's political or not, it doesn't matter. But whether that's nonprofit or not, whether that's for-profit business or not, I doubt it's for-profit business. I'm probably not very good at that. But whatever the venue is, that's what I want to be doing.
Because when you say things like, how do you move the most dirt for the most people? There's something more in there than that general, broad stroke. So what means something to you when you say, the most people? Does that mean, there's some narrow focus of the, underserved market or underserved population that, has deep impact here for you? Or what is that? Or is it just general community issues that?
Yeah, no. So the source of it, I think, and I said this earlier, we're going to go to this faith thing, but I just think that like my version of the Christian faith is that people are good and that everyone matters. Like these good people actually matter. And like if that's true, and if what I said at the beginning of this is that my hope would be that like it wouldn't just be like me on a slightly higher chair than you, that there's like a real dialogue and a conversation, then that applies to every single person. And there's like a tenacity about that like you don't get to like just choose certain people. So as I think about, well, what can I do? There's 100 of different service type nonprofits, but when I think about what moves the most dirt for the most people, those are issues of justice often, not service only. And so then you're in a different arena. I mean, you're just it's a completely different space. And I started out in the service thing, and now I'm doing different work. And when I talk about leadership development, what I'm talking about is how do you make people kind of light that match within themselves? Because imagine if everyone in this room really, and I think a lot of people have actually, because the people that I know in this room, but if everyone in this room has lit that match and they're going and lighting it in someone else, then you really start a fire instead of what often I think service type work can be doing is putting out fires instead of starting them.
When you went to those people and you said, hey, just grab a cup of coffee, what I found, and I'll say this as a prerequisite to the question, is usually, especially in communities like ours, people are willing to help, especially when they see something in you, but more than likely, people want to help. When you went to those folks, how did they respond to you? Because I guess what I'm leading to is if the traditional route to education doesn't work for most people, how can they find those resources in what's around them?
Every single person said, thank you so much for asking. Like, thank you. I wouldn't have thought of it. And I think that matters a ton to this conversation because, ladies and gentlemen,
That's odd.
because I think that especially people who have worked through a certain system where the paper is the thing, the ladder is the way, like that's the only way to do it. This notion of like looking back behind and going, oh wait, now I have it. Now I actually have it. So how do I turn it around and give it away? It's been gratitude, the response that I've gotten from people.
Are you doing what you imagined you'd be doing at this stage of your life?
No chance.
What do you think you'd be doing?
When was I thinking about what I would be doing?
When you were a kid, what did you think you would be doing?
I don't know. I remember in high school being interested in journalism. That sounds so silly, but that was interesting to me. I honestly don't know. I mean, college, the whole college thing was, so it's interesting, right? Like I just kind of show up and say yes. Like I feel like that's kind of,
it's like you said before, like you never applied for a job before. Like they just came to you.
No, I've never. This is Kevin Mullen, ladies and gentlemen. He's working the doors. And when you name a brewery, Black Cloister, you have to have doors that large, right? Like if that was like a little pocket door, like not really even like solid, we'd all be like, oh, well, I guess.
There we
you
go.
Like a true cloister.
There we go.
You got it.
Thank you.
What were we talking? What was the question again?
I forgot, honestly. Oh, did you imagine you'd be doing what you're doing today?
No. What I said was I feel like I just show up and say yes. So I didn't miss a day of school from K through 12. I just had perfect attendance. Partially, I'm like a bit of a people person. There were more people in school than were in my house. And so I felt like that'd be boring to stay home. We didn't have a TV till I was 12. That helped. I think it was around then. Like, so TV wasn't like a stay home and watch television. Didn't make sense to me. So I went to school and I wanted to like be around people. So I just show up and say yes. I legitimately don't have this memory of having this. I want to do X, Y, and Z, which is why I go back to this faith thing. I think the senior year of high school, which is probably true for many people, was a significant turning point. And here's what is so funny to me, and it's almost ironic because when I met that youth pastor that I talked about earlier, I remember seeing him. He was a youth pastor, and when I left high school, I said, "Well, I want to be a youth pastor then." Looking back, that's not true. Like I don't really even like students that much, really. I was saying I want to do what he's doing. That's like all I was saying. And I think if I was able to like kind of bust that open a little bit and break that apart, then I would have been a little more clear, possibly. The reason I said that was ironic is I think that's like the job of the mentor is to help you break that apart and really kind of dive into that. And so,
for people who are similar to you, alternative learners, people who are curating this path, how do you think the traditional system can help them better? get to where it is they're trying to go?
Yeah, so I think that it's really important that we start to think about college, the traditional system, if we're going to use those synonymously, that college is to help you become who you're going to be, not help you find out what you're going to do. And if we were able to, however you, and I'm not clearly not involved in college, right? I'm not in an academic situation. But if you're able to flip that switch for people, it's a game changer. Because that's what it's about. I think that's what it's about. The experience, the people that I know that have gone away to college, and that I actually, if I have a regret about college, it's that I didn't go away somewhere, because I think that would have been really significant and impactful for me. But it did not stand a chance of me finishing college when I was like home. No chance. Because it couldn't hold a candle to everything else that I was going to find myself doing or interested in. But the people that I know that have gone away to college and had the most transformative experience, they had this experience with a different set of people, a different culture, and a different time for a finite period of time, and they came out and said, man, who I was when I went there is not who I am when I left. And if that was the message on the front end, find out who you're going to be, man, I probably would have went.
What skill or lesson did you learn later in life that you'd wish you'd learned while you were going through the traditional system?
I think how to process things. That might sound. I think that is a skill, though. I don't think that's like just simply people who are a little more introspective that they have it. I mean, I think it is a real skill. So I mentioned Dave Beckwith. Since we're throwing out names, I can just say it. He has he's literally trained my mind that like if I'm doing something that I'm personally leading or maybe I'm really involved in, I really like to have like the prepare conversation and then like the process conversation. And that is often like more important than the actual thing. And so if I would have learned that early on, that would have been, because I mean, you know, the 20s, right? Like, I mean, think about it, like an extroverted me in my 20s, I was like, it was trial and error, shotgun approach. Like shoot, man, I don't know, shoot. Like, and so if you were to be able to build in that, okay, what's this next thing? What do you prepare? How do you prepare for this? And then when you're done, how do you process how that happened? That would have been really helpful.
I just thought of this question because there's some people who, and I'm closing, about 5 more minutes left here. There are some people, and I don't even know if you can answer this, but try if you can. There are some people who people are just naturally drawn to, and I consider you one of those. People just like Sam. Why is that? What do you think?
Well, it's also fair to say that some people hate me. So that's important.
I don't hear a lot of people that don't like Sam.
Well, they're not talking to you. They're talking to other people who don't like me. No, I think that I hope, I don't know, but I will, the vulnerability thing, right? Like, I would say that I hope is because I actually care about them. I hope that that's what it is. Here's the thing that's crazy. Like I'm moving this week. I've said that I'm moving tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. It's insane, the timing of all of this. But, so I've been like at this new house, like painting till midnight, but with people. Like I had a friend come over today in the afternoon, not planned, middle of his day, came over and like helped paint my house. Like people are giving so much. And so the reason I put that in this question is I feel like often I'm asking a lot of people. I hope it's because they know that I really care about them.
Talk to me about these books here. We're going to give away these books, and I'm going to get on my phone and like after I toss the question to you because I have to find a winner. Oh, great. And just, you know, again, housekeeping. For folks who gave $10 or more, you automatically qualify to win these books, which are 2 of Sam's favorite books.
Who wants in? There's still time.
Yeah, there's still time. You got till I get this question out.
What if money started just flying?
Right.
They're all like, I just bought them on Amazon for $10.
Right.
Like, what's?
You can
I'm
throw
kidding.
$10 on the table too.
I'm
That's
kidding.
fine. So talk to me about these books. You could take one by one and why you picked these books, and I'll let you introduce what they are. And forgive me, I'm going to be on my phone because I have to find a winner for the folks who graciously donated.
Yeah, great. These are recent books that I've read, so they're not like it's not like I read this when I was 16 and it forever. No, it's not about that at all. These are very recent. So first is The Icarus Deception by Seth Godin. On the back it says, "Art is frightening." And one of the things when I picked this up that I thought was so interesting is that he is making the case for the connection economy. He like sets that over. If you know Seth Godin, like he just throws a lot out there, and often then you're like, oh, that's really interesting, and then at the end you're like, oh, I just needed to back up. I see the picture now. Like it all connected somehow. And so he's throwing out this idea of like the connection economy. So it's not just like an industrial economy or an information type economy. It's this connection economy. It's not what do you do, it's who do you know, that type of thing. And also he's saying everything is art. And one of the things that blew my mind about this is I felt like what I hope to be creating in the city, in the context where I live, is a community. And I was like, man, like how incredible would that be if like I viewed that as like that is my art. And so I woke up in the morning and thought, what am I going to create today related to connection and conversation and community building and organizing? And I mean, what am I going to create today in terms of political conversations where we started to not only think in the old forms, but we started to think in maybe the oldest forms, which is people are elected to represent the whole, not just the few. Like what if I thought about like my life that way? And that was just so interesting. Obviously the connection economy, I'm extremely like extroverted. I was like, well, that's convenient. That's convenient that I was like born now and there's like this connection economy booming because it's really conducive to how I want to live my life. So that's this one. Do you want me to do the next one?
Yes, please.
This is so Parker Palmer. You Will asked me a question like, what two books? And I actually said these two books, and then I said, but anything written by these two people, like anything. And Palmer is really interesting. Like I think that this book is he is not a political writer. He has a center, the Center for Courage and Renewal. Is that what it is called? Thank you, Bryce. Bryce and I work together. So very different people, but we balance well. So I'm like, what is that place called? The Center for Courage and Renewal. But he also, I think, has been really drawn to politics. And so it's this notion of rediscovering we the people. And so in the early on, he just lays out the case that today, and I mean, I don't know when it was written, but it was certainly not this election cycle. And so what is true 20 years ago is certainly true now and will be 20 years from now. But he said his whole premise is this notion that there's like this fringe on each side, but then there's this center that's often just like totally left out and totally kind of finding the whole system irrelevant, becoming really kind of like apathetic towards it. It's not just youth that's apathetic, it's everyone in between. And so it's this notion of how do we rediscover we the people. And so this book, he is probably my greatest political influence, and I hope to keep it that way because he's not like a political writer, but he's a writer. He knows how to be and work with people, which I think is involved in politics. I think. I'm not sure. I'm not an elected official, but I just have this hunch that it involves people. And so when he writes, it's just really, really incredible. So this book will probably be like a gateway drug to every other book he's written. And if you mix these two together, it's going to be a wonderful cocktail.
Cool. I have one more question, but I'm going to give the books away. I don't know who this person is, and hopefully they're here. Aaron O'Brien Felty? No? No Aaron? All right. Yes, must be present to win. So let me do this randomizer again one more time. First 10. Yes. Actually, you do this. You just pick something.
Okay, ready? That one.
Molly Lukey.
Hey! I didn't even look. I just.
These are for you, Molly. Yes, you get. Then you have to give it away. It's your pressure to give it away.
Oh, I
We're
love
passing along the
it.
pressure.
Redistributing. I love it.
This is the night of redistribution. All right, we'll do another one. So whoever it is, one more time.
Okay. That one.
Aaron Peterson. Hey.
Do you? Oh yeah, perfect. Did I loan you a copy? Oh, that's so good. No, so I loaned her. Yeah, I loaned Aaron a copy of that very book.
Something else going on over here.
It's funny.
The last question is, you have 3 little girls, and I have babies as well, about the same age as your babies, and I think a lot about education and where my kids go to school, how we behave with my kids, because I have plans for them, and I know that they'll have plans for themselves. But I want to raise independent kids who are smart and intelligent and are thoughtful and respectful. When you think about your babies, what type of system of education do you hope is ready for them when they get there?
I mean, look, so my wife and I are going to homeschool for a little while, which is a way to say that my wife is homeschooling for a little while. She's a teacher, and it's so interesting to me. I mentioned faith. A lot of people homeschool because they're afraid of like what's out there, which is like a little weird because they're going to get out eventually. And so are they prepared or are they like not? So that's interesting. That has nothing to do with it for us. It has everything to do with the fact that like right now, my oldest daughter, Nora, will be 6 in May, and we don't want to like send her away for 8 hours a day. That's it. Like right now, that's one of the driving forces behind homeschooling, because we don't trust the school, the place, to help her become who she is. We don't trust it. We think that it's going to say all of these things and put all of these little kind of cups and say stack them up in that way. You didn't do it fast enough. That person did it faster. And we just don't trust it. And there are a couple schools, really not acknowledging anyone in the room, that are incredible at that. But I can't really afford it. And even
isn't that that's the shame of
let's go, but I want to say one more thing, because even if I could, we still feel like, I mean, my wife's like a licensed teacher and she wants to do it. We won't homeschool forever. But like for right now, we're just like, man, to have all of our kids, like, and we just bought this new house where we have actual space. It's not like, okay, that was your bed, now it's a table. Okay, now it's like your playroom. Like we have space to do this. And so we're really excited to kind of dig into that. But I think, I mean, the bottom line is we have a chance for my wife to be the major influence in our 3 daughters' life in multiple ways. And she's brilliant. Like Lindsay loves to teach, and she's wicked smart. She was a science teacher and like plays piano by ear and is like an artist. I mean, she's just like this well-rounded unicorn of a person. And she sends me out of the house every day so she can do this with the girls. So that's what we're doing. What I hope, it just goes back to this idea of like, I would want a system that says, who are you? And I want to help you become that. How you scale that, I don't know. And I'm not in this work because of that reason. I don't know how you do that. But until I see it, I don't want to like send my kid out of the house every single day. That said, we did make an intentional choice to move to Washington Local School District recently, because if I'm going to get a fairly free school district, there are also some like just baseline things that I want to be at least have access to. I also know that like I have 3 daughters and they're all going to be so different. So Nora's super like, I want to go to school and see my buddies and buddies and buddies and buddies. And Aaliyah, our next, is like, Mama, like I just don't want to leave at all. So I mean, if that carries, right? Like if that's how their personality is, maybe Aaliyah homeschools longer, and we just like take all that into consideration.
That's a good place to end it. Sam Melden. Again, there's some, just in closing, again, I got to thank, first of all, I got to do this because he's in the building. This logo here, down here, was done by Gene Powell, which is fantastic. He's the man. Again, thanks to Andrew Upper for taking pictures. Don Miller, Jay Whitlow, who's still not here. What's up with Jay? Don Miller, who's probably out there somewhere getting more beer. And my other partners, PK, so good to see you. Emily, love you guys. Thanks for everybody for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.